Welcome back to EttaroLive Digital Basics Wednesday nights as we discuss all things digital production, inspiration, creation, motivation, what it takes to turn the video camera into a powerful weapon. My weapon of choice in this information war. We're discussing the digital media revolution with Mr. Jack Blood, our special guest this evening. Jack was about to share with us about the time. Now, dude, I got something to bust on you about because I've never worked for Fox News, man.
Well, let's set the record straight. I didn't work for them. I worked with them on the conventions back in 2004.
Bad enough. Close enough, man.
I was the guy on Media Row under the Fox banner with everybody looking at me and giving me that accusatory look. I did this at the Democratic National Convention.
Well, what were you wearing?
Well, the first day I was wearing a suit and a tie. By the fourth day, I was wearing my Tyranny Response Team T-shirt. So, I had to kind of ease them into it.
That'll do it.
They put us by the bathrooms over there because we were Fox News. It was the Democratic National Convention. I couldn't believe in front of my eyes. I mean, I'm watching. This is the stuff behind the scenes that you never really see. They had me in a production trailer on the Fox lot. So I'm eating lunch with Sean Vanity every day and Britt Hume. And Britt Hume, of course, is the anchor over at the Fox Cable News Network. He does the Sunday show over there, co-hosts it. And, he's walking through this production lot every day. And I know that the hundreds and hundreds of employees and engineers and production assistants and other talk show hosts were warned ahead of time in some kind of a memo, never look at him in the eye. Well, I made sure I not only looked him in the eye, but I engaged him every time I walked past him, commenting on his attire and his news broadcast, and I was kind of a thorn in his side there. But here we are in the back trailer, and it's funny, I'm sitting next to the number one news guy in Providence, Rhode Island, where at the time I was broadcasting out of. I mean, he's the big Fox News TV guy, investigative reporter named Jack White, who they don't make him like that anymore. He's not with us anymore. But at the time, I mean, he was a pretty big guy out there, and here I'm working right next to him. They have multiple TVs, and you can flip the buttons on the TVs, and you can see all of the Fox cameras. They're not live, but you can see them, and you can hear what they're talking about. And you can, click on Channel 5, and you can see, oh, there's a guy. He looks suspicious. Let's say he's a terrorist, and let's say he's here to cause trouble. And you can hear him, framing all this and building it up. Meanwhile, there's a memo on your desk that says, well, here's what you should be reporting. Here are the angles. Here are the talking points that you should follow. Well, I was independent working with them, so I didn't have to follow this script. I know most of them people, they were paid employees. I mean, they didn't care about the convention other than the fact that it's a worldwide news event. They just wanted to get to the next, Super Bowl Sunday, or they were working all these different events for Fox, and they couldn't care less about what we were doing for the most part. But in the end, I mean, I'm sitting throughout two different conventions looking at this giant controlled chaos, trying to figure out how is this a conspiracy? How are every single one of these people in on this giant conspiracy? And it just, it's very simple. None of them really know. They're all out just like everyone else in America trying to get a paycheck. And, they have these memos, they have these talking points, and this is how they make it happen. This is how we end up with the end result there on Fox News. But sitting under their banner for 4 days has got to be one of the biggest horror stories of my career on so many levels. At one point, I think it was the first day when I still had my tie on, I'm sitting there and I'm talking about the Federal Reserve, about 9/11, about the things I normally talk about on my show. Mm-hmm. And I look, and there's Wolf Blitzer. And he's standing about 5 feet from me, and he's staring me down. He's got his arms folded, and if his eyes, could shoot 50 calibers. I mean, I'd have been exploded and dead right on the spot. He was shooting daggers out of his eyes, standing 4 or 5 feet from me, not moving, in the middle of a place he shouldn't have been naturally standing, with his arms folded, staring me down. And he kept looking up to the Fox banner and looking back down at me, going, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't compute. And we went on that week to interview congressmen and interview generals, and interview, a lot of the people that we were getting set up with. And they all sat down with me going, okay, this is Fox. But then I would, lead them into conversations about 9/11 or about the Federal Reserve. And we stood our ground. And at the end, I had people coming up to me, old, veteran, grizzled journalists and broadcasters who were in the booths all up and down Media Row, coming and shaking my hand for what we were doing. That was in 2004. That's 3 years ago now, almost, or more than 3 years ago. And people didn't have the level of awareness they have now, Sam. So to have that happen then, you could see that we were on to something. Now, I always thought that, we would go out, we would lead the charge, and people would be coming to us and saying, hey, you should be on our radio station. We want to syndicate you. This is what people really need to hear, kind of what Ron Paul is receiving for his message. I never knew that guys like Michael Savage and Glenn Beck now talking about, he's done his homework, he says. He's talking about the North American Union and the law of the sea treaty and all of these things now. I never realized that they were just going to steal all of our work and that we weren't going to get any credit for it. But we paid our dues, and it was hard. Working in that situation under all of these newsmakers, these movers and shakers who can make a radio career with a snap of a fingers. It locks you into this groupthink, and you start questioning yourself. Is this what I should be doing? Shouldn't I be doing something more newsworthy? Shouldn't I be doing something more mainstream? And the answer is no, I don't want to get lost in that shuffle. No, I have to talk about what I believe in. And, of course, thus, I was canceled off of the Republican convention, and they put me in a basement somewhere, and it got kind of worse from there, Sam. But and I think that's kind of the lesson learned here, is that there isn't a giant cabal where everybody's in on it, manipulating the news. There's just a loosely knit, controlled chaos there where everybody wants to get their paycheck. Everybody wants to continue paying their mortgage or their car payments. It's not a lot different than the rest of society. Now, Richard Salent was the former president of CBS News, and I thought he put it very succinctly. I included this in my article for your paper. Our job is to give people not what they want, but what we decide they ought to have. And when we begin to understand that as a nation, as a group of media consumers, then I think we'll know where we need to put our muscle.
For the youngsters out there listening that may not be aware of the term the Fourth Estate, explain that to us very briefly. And have we lost it? Are we in a mode where we have to preserve this by redefining it?
Well, Sam, that's a great question. Actually, right now, there are new plans to further consolidate the media. I mean, this is something Al Gore has complained and protested endlessly about. The consolidated or centralized media, when he's the guy back in 1996, along with Bill Clinton, who signed the Telecommunications Act, which actually deregulated and centralized the media. Yeah, the Fourth Estate, which is, I believe, a term that was co-opted by Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, was the overseer, the ultimate overseer, the fourth branch of the government behind the judiciary, the Congress, and the executive branch. It is literally a part, or was supposed to be included as a part of our government by the Founding Fathers. That's a free media. And I could quote Thomas Jefferson. He said, the basis of our government being the opinion of the people, the very first object should be to keep that right. As were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate for a moment to prefer the latter. And that's the Fourth Estate. And the problems that we see today are a perfect example of the Fourth Estate not doing its job. And it's unfortunate in a way that we have to pick up that mantle. Us, the citizens out there, people with video cameras, people who can plug into the Internet with a microphone, have to take up the mantle to be the overseers and the watchdogs of the other three branches.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's also exciting and downright fun. We love it. You know, this is...
it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it.
The opportunity of a lifetime. Back in a minute, Craig in British Columbia and Carl in Montreal. Your calls after this break.